I want to turn our attention to a topic that I think this is my least popular view that I have. I don't care. The truth is what it is, and I don't care to be popular if it means changing my views to something that is not correct. The sin spinach has become very popular lately. You know, I'm talking about that Jamaican oregano, the devil's lettuce. You know what I mean. Jazz cigarettes. I'm talking about marijuana. On the left, they love smoking the ganj, and on the right, all too many conservatives have gone along with the fad to legalize marijuana. Well, one of my absolute favorite writers out there, Madeleine Kearns, who is a staff writer for National Review and a contributor to The Spectator, and a wonderful musician, by the way. You can go look her up on YouTube and things like that. She has a very courageous piece out there talking about why conservatives should not embrace big dope and all of the dopey things that are going to go along with it. Maddie, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael, and thank you for caring about this topic.
My pleasure. I would. You know, and I say this, by the way, as someone, I'm not saying that when I was young and irresponsible, I wasn't on occasion a little young and irresponsible, but I never really cared for marijuana. It just didn't do it for me. I've smoked cigars since I was about 3 years old. I've always enjoyed that in moderation. Always enjoy a drink or two, or depending on the evening, maybe a little more than that. But marijuana never really did it for me. And it's just amazing to watch this happen in real time, that everyone in the culture, including the so-called conservatives, are embracing it. It's funny, too, because you probably are better known for dealing with this issue of transgenderism. You've done some of the best work out there on the transgender question. I would also encourage people to read Maddie's investigative work on that. But somehow I think that the marijuana issue might be more controversial even than the gender question.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And again, I'm going to play the outsider card here and say that I came to America as an outsider. I don't suffer from the same sort of ideological blinkers that I think some people do. And there is this false dichotomy here with the marijuana question, that either we have this terrible, horrible, frightful war on drugs, or we have this wonderful, no problems, gold rush, or in this case, Michael, a green rush, which really is all about money. And so what I'm saying here, it's a very moderate piece. It has very careful scope. I'm saying, hey, have you considered this enormous pile of health concerns? Okay, and I can show you the evidence for that. And if you haven't considered them, may I just ask why? Because they're pretty glaringly obvious.
Of course. You know, I've got a number of friends, especially growing up in New York. I have a number of friends who are really, really into it. You know, that's like their absolute favorite hobby. But I notice a lot of them are very anti-tobacco. So the same people who will hotbox a Camry, you know, and make the whole thing reek of skunk will tell me that I'm not allowed to light up my cigar. And I say, hold on a second here. Even putting the taste of it aside, if you're going to tell me that my cigar, or cigarettes certainly, you know, even more so, have all of these health concerns and these questions of tar and carcinogens and potential cancers or emphysema, you think marijuana just has no risk of any of that at all? It would seem to me that they're pretty similar in their risk, and yet the group for legalization, the group for decriminalization, whatever, the pro-pot people, they totally seem blind to it.
That's absolutely right. And the other parallel, of course, with tobacco is the way that the industry behaves. So this is a very familiar story in American life. Unfortunately, we had at the first half of the 20th century, we had big tobacco. Big tobacco said, don't worry about tobacco. It's wonderful for you. Good for health, good for digestion, good for the nerves. They had doctors coming forward and saying this. In fact, it wasn't until the 1950s when the British Medical Journal did a study on doctors who smoked, okay, because 85% of doctors at the time smoked, that they began to say, there seems to be an awfully high link with lung cancer, and could there be something there? Now, of course, the important thing to remember about epidemiology is it takes a very long time to establish a causal link. If you spend a lot of time speaking to scientists, speaking to researchers, you will notice they are very cautious people. They are cautious in their conclusions. They plod on at tortoise pace. But the thing is that is an unfortunate combination with the gung-ho industry chaps who would have you believe that this is the best thing since sliced bread. There's no problems to be seen, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. But actually, if you read my piece, and I encourage that people do, you will find that I have actually gone through the medical literature for you so you don't have to. And there are some very sexy charts in there that show a very, very striking correlation with psychotic incidents. If you think psychosis is not really that big of a deal, not that big of a deal compared to lung cancer, well, you might want to read my report because it's not very attractive. It ruins lives. It ruins families. It ruins communities.
It does. Nothing gets me going quite like a good chart, but it's true. There are plenty of sexy charts in there, and then even beyond this question of psychosis, which to me, is pretty serious. Getting a cough or some awful disease from tobacco, that's bad too. But psychosis, also something to avoid. You get into the money. There's a lot of big money here. There's a lot of, where there's big money, there's going to be big political influence, and that might be skewing the debate.
That's absolutely right, Michael. And it's worth saying, this is something that is a problem on both the left and the right. We have Andrew Cuomo talking about how wonderful it is. We're going to have all this money. And then, of course, he tries to justify it by saying, oh, we'll put it back into, minority communities who have been harmed by the war on drugs, as if that's like, what's the logic there? It makes no sense. But yes, money is the big driving force here. And listen, these people are not especially discreet, okay? They say things like, I quote a guy, a tech entrepreneur, who, when Washington state legalized marijuana in 2013, he said on the record, we are big marijuana. We are going to mint more money than Microsoft, okay? It's all out there, guys. I'm simply pointing to the facts. Don't shoot the messenger.
It's funny because I've actually gone back and forth on this in my own mind. Should I invest in marijuana? Seriously, because I know that if the trends continue as they are, there's a ton of money to be made, right? Unless people go in and fight it and regulate it or whatever. So the part of me that wants to make a bunch of money is very into that. But then the part of me that thinks this is bad for the country says maybe I'll make my money some other way. But there's no question there's a lot of momentum behind big marijuana. And one thing that troubles me as a conservative is how many people on the right have gotten into this. When I think of marijuana, I think of those filthy hippies rolling around the mud at Woodstock, smoking their joints in the 60s. And yet now there are some people on the right who would have us believe that the freedom to puff the magic dragon is somehow deeply conservative. It makes us all Edmund Burke. Where does that come from?
Yeah, this is just this kind of like unscrupulous enthusiasm for any market influence, and we've seen this as an excess on the right for years. We've in fact, the same people who were saying, "Oh, they're overreacting about big tobacco. It's fine," and then the big pile of dead bodies in the corner, and they go, well, maybe we were wrong, but carry on, are now making the exact same mistake. Wake up, people, smell the very pungent smell.
That's a very good point. Do you think that then the way back is through the science, to show, hey, look, we've got these sexy charts, as you say, and they're all going to show you, how deadly or, all the health effects of this. Or do you think it's through, say, political philosophy to say, look, regardless almost of the science, this is not something we want for our country. This is not going to lead to human flourishing. This is a foreign element in our country. And so we just want to diminish it because this is a self-government, and that's what I'd like.
It depends who you're talking to, Michael. I think that conservatives, for whatever reason, they're more cerebral. They like philosophy, and they can be persuaded that
more handsome too. Yeah.
But with the left, if we make the case, and it can be made, I have made the case from the public health point of view, then you will actually find that any honest broker will have to look at that evidence and they will have to say, okay, what is my response to this? Do I have a counter argument that's stronger, or do I accept that, hey, she's got a point, and this isn't really all, it isn't that great. I hate to be a party pooper. Social conservatives hate to be party poopers.
Of course.
But I am the person who's showed up to the party and noticed that not everybody's having a good time. Some people are very sick. Some people are, blowing marijuana into the face of the dog. They don't seem entirely all there. I'm wondering if that's maybe a party that needs to be rethought in some essential way.
So you think this could also be a wedge issue on the left, in that the left, they're obviously quite enamored of public health experts and a politics based on public health. And so as much as they might love, turning up the jukebox and puff, I don't really know what these people do, but as much as they might love pot, they might prefer their kind of politics of public health.
Yes, I think it is a wedge issue on the left, and I'll give you another reason. Not just does this big dope resemble big tobacco, it also resembles big pharma's role in the opioid crisis. Now, I don't want to suggest that it's exactly the same thing and that we're going to see the same level of devastation necessarily. I mean, I don't know is the answer. I don't know how much devastation this is going to cause. But the fact is that there are people trying to make money out of this, and they're putting money way before public health. And we've seen this before. Where is most ravaged by such money making? It's poor communities. It's places that were already vulnerable. It's minority communities. So I think that actually, if the left, there are definitely people on the left who this argument could appeal to.
I should hope that's the case, because it is bizarre that we've now got a lot of people in this country pushing for legalization amid the worst drug overdose crisis ever. And I'm lucky in that drugs have never been my thing, aside from a little marijuana in college. It's the hardest drug I've ever tried, and I really didn't get that into it. But I do know people for whom it has had very serious consequences. People who were highly intelligent, who, let's say, they started smoking when they were 12 or so. They just became dumber. I saw it happen in real time. I saw this happen in college. I've seen this happen after college. People who will wake and bake. And something I love that you talk about in your piece is looking at the feedback from actual daily or more than daily or 3 or 4 times a day marijuana users who say, this isn't all that great. This isn't as anodyne as I was told this would be. I'm having real side effects here, and I don't really like it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I just want to make clear that I don't judge anyone who takes marijuana. And the villain of my piece, as evidenced by the cover, so it's the cover story, and the artist did a brilliant job of depicting the big dope, is the industry. I'm taking aim at the industry here because I think, look, for some people, that's a pretty big temptation to take drugs. Life can be difficult. Life can be boring, for goodness sake. You want a little holiday from reality, as Huxley put it. I understand. I've spent quite a lot of time on the various Reddit communities going through self-reports of users. And as you say, Michael, they are reporting some pretty disturbing things. Panic attacks, difficulty breathing, hospitalization, vomiting, paranoia. These are things that people who are using these drugs are reporting, and they're looking for answers. They're going to the deepest, darkest corners of the web for answers. Why can't we get some answers from journalists? Why can't we get some answers from politicians holding those industry leaders to account?
We've been talking about big marijuana, that industry benefiting here. We haven't really talked about big Dorito, or big Munchie, which obviously is a little downstream of that. I think your point is so apt here that part of it is, people, they just want to have fun or whatever. There's the pain of life, but it's also just boredom. People are kind of bored, and so they're flailing about and don't really know what to do. And this creates an opportunity for an industry to crop up sort of within the law, but outside of the law, to really take advantage of this moment. And I think they are taking advantage. I think you did an excellent job in your piece outlining that. I highly recommend that people go check it out. Maddie, where can everyone find you?
Madeleine Kearns on Twitter. It's at Madeleine Kearns, and that's Madeleine Kearns.
That is actually kind of a harder. It doesn't totally roll off the tongue, but I encourage everybody. Madeleine Kearns at Twitter. Maddie, thank you so much for being here. Read more from Maddie in National Review and The Spectator, and go listen to her music too on YouTube. Thank you so much, as always.